Hi children, welcome to my channel Easy Learning. So today we will be dealing with the chapter How do organisms reproduce. Already the first chapter video it is uploaded in my channel and the playlist of that particular video will be given in the description box. All the life processes, that is the 4 life process. So in this chapter also we will be learning another life process that is known as reproduction. In the first chapter, we have studied the 4 life processes which was essential for the organism to be alive. And here, this life process, reproduction, it is essential for the organism for its continuity of the species on the earth. Okay, so here first we will move on to regarding the definition of reproduction. What is meant by reproduction? I am telling the definition because always you should know the definition of each and every terms which is present in that chapter. So, what is meant by reproduction? Reproduction means the process in which the new organism is formed from the existing organism of the same species. So, the production of the new organism from the existing organism of the same species, that particular process, it is known as reproduction. So, this reproduction is very essential for the organism. Why? Because the same species will be present on the earth. At the same time, the continuity of life will be on the earth, and at the same time, one more main important thing it is that the same basic characteristics of the parents will be present there in the offspring. So, these are the main 3 reasons why the reproduction is essential or it is very important life process. So, coming to the next topic, that is regarding the types of reproduction. It is very, very important because it comes for 2-mark question. Differentiate between the 2 types of reproduction. One it is the asexual reproduction and the other one it is a sexual reproduction. So, regarding the types of reproduction. The types of reproduction, one it is asexual reproduction and second one it is the sexual reproduction. So, these are the 2 main types of reproduction. So, moving on to these, the definitions you should know. So, when you study the definition, you will get the difference between these 2 types of reproduction. First one regarding asexual reproduction. So, here in the asexual reproduction, the type of reproduction in which the new organism is formed without the involvement of the sex cells and from the single parent only. Only one parent is essential for this type of reproduction. So, asexual reproduction means it is the type of reproduction in which no involvement of sex cells. No sex cells is involved. What is meant by sex cells? That is the cells which contains the male gamete and the female gamete. That is meant by sex cells. So, in human beings, the sex cells are present. That is the male gamete and the female gamete is present there. Isn't it? That is the sperm and the ova. But here in the case of asexual reproduction, no sex cells is involved and only single parent is necessary. Single parent is necessary. So, by knowing the definition, we will be able to differentiate them also. Now, you can define sexual reproduction just opposite. The type of reproduction in which new organism is formed from both parents. That is, the both male and female parent with the involvement of the sex cell. So, sex cells is involved in this. At the same time, both parents are involved or it is necessary. So, that is the definition of asexual and sexual reproduction and you can differentiate. So, 2-mark question, differentiate between sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. It is very important. So, if they have asked the question, you have to write it in tabular column. Then the 2 columns you can draw. The first column you can write the asexual reproduction heading and second column sexual reproduction heading and you can write the 2 points. Only no need of writing in full sentence. No sex cells, involvement of sex cells. Then single parent involved, both parents involved. So, that these are the 2 main points you have to write for that particular question. I hope you have understood. So, now we will move on to regarding the sexual reproduction. Okay, first I will explain you regarding about the sexual reproduction because more questions are asked in this particular part rather than asexual reproduction. So, sexual reproduction part is more important than asexual part. Even though in asexual also 1 mark, 2 mark type questions may arise, then justify the statement may arise. Even though other than that, the more questions are involved in sexual reproduction. So, now I will explain about sexual reproduction. So, in the case of sexual reproduction, here the reproduction process, it takes place both in plants and animals also. So, sexual reproduction, it takes place both in plants and animals. So, first we will see about how the sexual reproduction takes place in plants. How the sexual reproduction, it takes place in plants. So, when we talk about regarding the plants, the sexual reproduction, which is the reproductive part of the plant? That is an MCQ question it is. So, which is the reproductive part of the plant? Flower is the reproductive part of the plant. Okay. And which is the reproductive part of the flower? Then it is, if the question comes, then it is the male reproductive organ known as the stamen and the female reproductive organ known as the pistil, or otherwise it is known as carpel. So, these are the two main reproductive organ which is present inside the flower. Which is the main reproductive organ present inside the plant? That is the flower. Flower is the answer. If the question comes based on plant, then flower is the answer. And if the question comes based on flower, then the stamen and pistil is the answer. So, this is a MCQ type question. So, you should remember and concentrate in these terms. So, regarding the reproduction process in plants. So, for that, we have to study about the structure of the flower. It is very, very important. The diagram is very, very important. You should know the diagram and all the parts of the flower. Already the same type of diagram we have studied in the class 6th standard. In that, one extra part only you will be studying here in 10th standard. So, regarding the structure of the flower, or you should know the cross section of the flower. So, when we talk about the structure of the flower, there are main parts, that is the most important parts in the flower. It consists of receptacle. This is known as receptacle because it is the base of the flower in which the whole flower is attached. All the parts of the flower it is attached to this receptacle. So, it is known as the base of the flower. Then comes the sepal. All the sepals together, it is known as the calyx. So, receptacle, it is the base of the flower. All the parts of the flower is attached. Second part, it is the sepal. All the sepals together, it forms the calyx. So, it may come. For example, 1 mark question. Mainly, what is the function of calyx or what is the function of sepal? So, the main function of the sepal is that it protects the flower in the early stage. When it is in the bud stage, the whole flower it is being protected. For example, when you observe a bud, you cannot see the color of the petal. Only the green part it will be present in the beginning before the blooming of the flower, isn't it? So, the sepals, they are protecting the flower. Okay, they are protecting the flower. Next comes the petal. Next part it is known as the petal, and all the petals together it is known as corolla. All the petals together it is known as the corolla. So, the main function of the petal, because when you take a flower, for example, the rose flower, good smell is there for the rose flower, isn't it? So the main function of the petal is to attract the insects for the process of pollination. For the process of pollination, they are attracting the insects. So that is the main function of petal. That is also a 1 mark question, the function of petals. Next comes the stamen. This together it is known as the stamen, and it is the male reproductive organ of the flower. So that also it can come for 1 mark question or MCQ. The male reproductive organ of the flower, that is stamen. It consists of two parts. This it is the anther, and this is the filament. So the stalk it is known as the filament, and the bulb-like structure at the top of the filament it is known as the anther. And this anther it contains the pollen grain, that is the yellow powdery substance which is present in the anther. It is the pollen grain which contains the male gamete. Okay, so that is regarding stamen. And next comes the female reproductive organ. It is known as the carpel, or otherwise it is known as the pistil. You might have studied the term pistil, but here you will learn the term the carpel. And these three parts are involved in pistil or carpel. It is the female reproductive organ. The first topmost part it is known as the stigma. The topmost part it is known as the stigma. It is a sticky part because it helps to stick the pollen grains. Okay, and then a tube-like structure it is present inside the flower. That tube-like structure which is attaching or connecting the stigma and the ovary, it is known as the style. And the last solen, this together we can call it as a flask-shaped structure. So the solen part at the bottom of the flower, it is known as the ovary. This ovary it contains what? The ovules. Okay, and the ovules contain the female gamete, ova. So these all the three together forms what? The pistil, or otherwise it is known as carpel. So that is regarding why I have told this in detail, because this diagram is very important. Always the question comes in between the labeling the parts. Other than that, the function of each part also will be asked. That is why I have explained this particular part in detail. The cross section of a flower or the structure of a flower. Okay, so these are the main parts which is present in the flower and its function. So I hope you have understood this particular part regarding the structure of a flower. The next part, we are talking about how the sexual reproduction takes place in plants, isn't it? So in that I have explained regarding the male reproductive organ and the female reproductive organ also, that is the stamen and the carpel or pistil. In that, how this particular reproduction process takes place, sexual reproduction in plants. So the most important part which is necessary to know about how the reproduction takes place in plants is by the formation of the seed. So how seed is formed? So the seed is formed when the male gamete, that is the male gamete which is present in the pollen grains, it unites with the female gamete which is present in the ovule. Then in that particular process, the seed is formed, and that process it is known as fertilization. So for the formation of the seed or the new plant, or for the process of reproduction to take place, there are two main methods or two types of processes which has to undergo. One it is the pollination, and the second one it is the fertilization. Pollination and fertilization. So these are the two main methods you should know. Why? Because very important. The fertilization diagram is very important. Always the question is repeated for the board exam. So you have to concentrate. Only those areas which I have discussed, if you concentrate, you will be able to score 100 plus marks. 100 marks in the particular subject science. Okay, so here the two main methods which help for the process of reproduction in plants. One it is the pollination and the other one it is fertilization. So first we will deal on pollination. What is meant by pollination? Pollination means the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. Already that is why I have drawn the diagram also. It will be easy for you to understand. So pollination means the transfer of pollen grains. I have told that the pollen grains is present there in the anther, the yellow powdery substance. So the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. That process it is known as pollination. And what is the medium for transferring this pollen grains from the anther to the stigma? It can be either water, it can be either wind or birds or insects. Okay, so these are the carriers of these pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. The insects, the water or wind and the birds. So here under pollination, that there are two types of pollination. One it is the self-pollination and the other one it is the cross-pollination. This is also very important. The two types of pollination methods. One it is the self-pollination and the other one it is the cross-pollination. So what is meant by self-pollination? Self-pollination means the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. Then it is known as self-pollination. There are certain flowers which contains both male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ. And there are certain flowers which contain only either male or female. So that two type of flowers, they are known as unisexual flowers and bisexual flowers. Bisexual flowers means it contains both male and female reproductive organs are present there in that flower. Whereas unisexual means it contains either male or female reproductive organ. So here the diagram which I have drawn, it contains both male as well as the female reproductive organ. So if the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, if it takes place in the same flower, then it is known as self-pollination. And what is meant by cross-pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of another flower of the same plant or another plant of the same kind. For example, you may be having different many plants together of the same variety. So from this plant, the pollen grains, it has been transferred to another plant of the same kind. Then it is known as cross-pollination. So these are the two main methods for the process of pollination to take place. One it is the pollen and the other one it is cross-pollination. Next one, it is after the pollination process. So the anther, from the anther, the pollen grain has been transferred to stigma. The pollen grain has been transferred to stigma. So this pollen grains are present there on top of the stigma because it is a sticky in nature. So it gets attached to the stigma. So once it gets attached to the stigma, then this pollen grain, it forms a pollen tube. It penetrates through this and then it forms a pollen tube. So how many pollen grains are present there? Same way, large number of pollen grains or pollen tubes will be formed inside the stigma. And that pollen tube, it will move towards, so it passes through the style. It becomes longer. It increases its length. So it grows. And this pollen tube, it contains what? The male gamete. So this pollen tube, it moves through the style and then afterwards what happens? It reaches the ovary. Once it reaches the ovary, the end part or the edge of the pollen tube, it bursts open. It bursts open and then the male gamete, it gets transferred to the ovary. And there the male gamete, it fuses with the female gamete which is present inside the ovule. And that is how the process of fertilization takes place. So what is fertilization? The fusion of the male gamete and the female gamete to form zygote. So that after the fusion of the male gamete and female gamete, we call it as the zygote of fertilization. After the process of fertilization, we call it as the fertilized egg because the male gamete, it gets fused with the female gamete which is present inside the ovule, and that egg, it is known as the fertilized egg or the zygote. So that fertilized egg, it goes on dividing and then it forms an embryo, and this ovule, it has a protective coat. It develops a protective coat around the ovule, and afterwards it can get converted into a seed containing the baby plant. Okay, so that is, baby plant means the embryo, and that ovary part, this ovary, it develops into fruit. So here comes another important question: which part of the flower turns into seed and which part it turns into fruit? That is, the ovary, it forms the fruit, and the ovule, it forms the seed. Okay, the remaining all part, it gets dried off. Only the ovary part will be present there on the plant, and it develops into a fruit. So after that, we are told regarding the fertilized egg or the zygote, isn't it? Or that particular seed. See, after the formation of the seed, the ovule is developing a protective coat, and gradually it gets converted into seed. So the seed is considered to be the reproductive part of the plant. Why? Because from the seed only a new sapling may arise. So seed is considered to be the reproductive part of the flower. Okay. So here, once the seed is been formed, in that it consists of few parts. That is, it contains the baby plant, that is the embryo, and also it contains the food which is needed for that particular plant to grow. So the part of the seed which grows into shoot, it is known as the plumule, and the part of the seed which grows into root, it is known as the radicle. These two terms are very, very important: plumule and radicle. It comes for MCQ or 1-mark question. Okay, regarding plumule and radicle. So the shoot develops, the part of the seed which forms the shoot is known as the plumule, and the part of the seed which forms the root, it is known as the radicle. So plumule and radicle is very, very important, and I have told that there will be food present inside the seed for that particular seed to grow. That part, it is known as cotyledon. So all these terms you should remember. Cotyledon. So the structure of that seed, it is very, very important. The question comes, it comes for MCQ. This is the structure of the seed, the sprouted seed. So here, this is the cotyledon, this is the radicle, and this is the plumule. Okay. So these are the three parts of a seed. So it is very, very important. It becomes for MCQ. It is always repeatedly asked for board exam. So I hope you all have understood regarding how the sexual reproduction takes place in plants. We have discussed about the two types of definition of reproduction, two types of reproduction, asexual and sexual, and the difference between them. Then how the sexual reproduction takes place in plants, which is the reproductive part of the plant, which is the reproductive part of the flower. Then we have discussed about the structure of the flower and its function. Then two main methods for the process of reproduction, pollination and fertilization. In that we have discussed about two types of pollination, self and cross pollination, and I have explained also for the process of fertilization. The diagram is very, very important, the fertilization diagram, and then the formation of the fruit and the seed. The ovary forms the fruit and the ovule forms the seed. Ovary and ovule, it forms the fruit and seed, and here in the structure of the seed, the diagram, it is very, very important. It comes for MCQ or either for 2-mark question. So I hope all have understood this particular topic, that how sexual reproduction takes place in plants. Next we move on to how the sexual reproduction takes place in animals. How the sexual reproduction takes place in animals. The same topic, same points only it is discussed here also, that is regarding fertilization. What is fertilization? Already I have told. Fertilization is the fusion of male gamete and female gamete. to produce zygote. That is known as fertilization. So when we talk about fertilization, here in the case of animals, there are two types of fertilization. One it is the internal fertilization and the other one it is the external fertilization. Internal fertilization and external fertilization. Internal fertilization means the fertilization which takes place inside the body of the female. That is the fusion of the male gamete and the female gamete, it takes place inside the female body. It is known as internal fertilization. Whereas in the case of external fertilization means the fusion of the male gamete and the female gamete, it takes place outside the female body. That is known as external fertilization. Internal fertilization, it takes place mainly in human beings, cat, dog, etc. Whereas external fertilization, it takes place in frog, fish, etc. Frog, toad and fish. Toad is the male frog. Okay, so here the internal and external fertilization. So this type of fertilization, its definition, it comes for 2-mark question. It is always repeatedly asked. So you have to concentrate in this topic, that is differentiate between internal fertilization and external fertilization. So you can differentiate both. Internal fertilization takes place inside the body of the female, whereas external fertilization, it takes place outside the body of the female. So that is regarding fertilization and types of fertilization. Next term, it comes under, that is under sexual reproduction in animals. That is puberty. All these terms you have studied in 8th, 7th standard. 8th standard science textbook, it is there. Puberty. That is the age at which the organism becomes sexually matured. It is known as puberty. It may occur both for male as well as the females. Puberty is there for both males as well as females. So puberty means the age at which the organism or either the male or the female become sexually matured. It is known as puberty. The puberty, the age limit for girls, it is nearly 10 to 12 and for boys it is 12 to 14. So that is the age limit for both male and female, the puberty. And how can you identify, or what are the characteristic features which help to know whether that they are sexually matured? So that characteristic which help to identify between a male and a female, that is we can differentiate a male and a female. He is a boy, he is a girl. The differentiation can be done by the presence of some characteristic features, and those characteristic features, they are known as secondary sexual characteristic features. So that is important. The question comes, it for case study questions and all, it may arise regarding the secondary sexual characters. So here in girls and boys, the secondary sexual characteristic can be seen. That is, in the case of boys, beard, moustache and all will occur. Then hairs occurs in the armpit and the pubic region. Then the male sex organs becomes developed. It starts producing sperms. So all these are the features which helps to identify that the boy is sexually matured. Similarly, in the case of girls also, the hairs grows at the armpits and the pubic region. Then the mammary glands become active and the female reproductive organ, it starts to produce ova or the egg. So these are known as the secondary sexual characteristic features. Okay. So it occurs after puberty. Then next topic to be discussed, it is very, very important, the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. So now we will discuss about the human reproductive system. It involves both male reproductive system and the female reproductive system. So first we will see regarding the male reproductive system. So the diagrams you should know. The diagram will be given in the question paper. Only thing it is that you should know the parts to mark. So for labeling the parts, you should know the diagram perfectly. It is very, very important. Both reproductive system, the male and the female reproductive system diagram is very, very important. You should know all the parts and its function also. So under male reproductive system. So the male reproductive system, the main parts which comes under male reproductive system. I am going to tell you only the parts. I am not going to draw here the diagram. So, the male reproductive system, it includes testis, then the sperm duct, then the scrotum, then the penis, seminal vesicle and prostate gland. So, these are the parts which is involved in the male reproductive system. So, in the male reproductive system, only the testis is present outside the abdominal cavity. So, why the testis is present outside the abdominal cavity? Give reason or justify the statement or comment on this. Like that, the question may arise, why the testis is present outside the abdominal cavity. So, here the main answer or the answer for that particular point is that the formation of the sperms, the testis, it produces the sperms and the male sex hormone, isn't it? So, the testis produces the sperm, so it needs some amount of temperature. So, the temperature which is needed for the formation of the sperm, it should be less compared to the body temperature. Body temperature, it is 37 degrees Celsius. So, it does not want that much amount of temperature for the sperms to survive. So, that is why this testis is present outside the abdominal cavity. So, the temperature outside the abdominal cavity is 3 degrees less than the normal body temperature. So, that is why the testis is present outside the abdominal cavity. Another part which comes under male reproductive system, it is the function of the seminal vesicle and the other one it is the prostate gland. Function of seminal vesicle and prostate gland. So, these are the two main areas where you have to concentrate, because always the question comes either for 2 mark question or case study question, it may arise. Okay. So, the seminal vesicle and the prostate gland, these are the two glands which is present through the pathway of that sperm duct. So, sperm duct, another term it is, here you will learn it as vas deferens. The sperm duct, the term it is vas deferens. So, along the pathway of the sperm duct, two glands will be there. Here, they both are providing its secretion for the easy movement of the sperms. Okay, so this seminal vesicle and the prostate gland, they provide their secretion. They secrete some substances. So, their secretions, it helps the sperms to move easily. At the same time, it is providing nutrition for the sperm also. So, these are the two main functions of seminal vesicle and prostate gland. Their secretion helps the sperms to move easily, and at the same time, it provides nutrition for the sperms. And that particular secretion through which the sperm move, it is known as that liquid, it is known as the semen. Semen is the term for that particular liquid in which the sperms are present. So, these are the areas where you have to concentrate. Another one more part which is there where MCQ question may arise. Name the part of the male reproductive system where the sperms are stored temporarily. So, the main part where the sperms are stored temporarily, it is epididymis. So, this is the part of the male reproductive system where the sperms are stored temporarily, epididymis. So, this is also an area where you have to concentrate, because these are the certain points which I have discussed under male reproductive system. The questions are repeatedly asked for board exam. So, regarding the function of the seminal vesicle and the prostate gland, then the term for sperm duct, then what is semen, and what is the main function of epididymis. Either it can come in that way or MCQ type also it may come. Name the part where the sperms are stored temporarily, that is epididymis. Okay. Now we move on to female reproductive system. So, the female reproductive system also, the main parts I will just tell, that is the main parts of female reproductive system. This also diagram you should know. Only rarely it is been asked for us to draw. Other than that, the diagram will be given in the question paper. Only thing it is that you should mark the parts. Directly it will not give. It may give sometimes the function of that particular part. You should be able to identify which part it is. So, along with the labeling the parts, you should know the function of each part also. Okay. So, here the main parts of female reproductive system, it is the uterus, then vagina, ovary and fallopian tube, or otherwise known as the oviduct. Only 4 main parts are there in the female reproductive system. That is the uterus, vagina. Vagina, it is also known as the birth canal. Vagina, uterus, then oviduct and ovary. So, 4 main parts of female reproductive system. So, here in this regarding female reproductive system, I will be only depicting the important points where the frequently asked questions will be there for board exam. That is regarding the main function of placenta. It is very, very important. So, first you should know what is placenta. Placenta means it is a disc-like tissue which arises after the implantation process. What is meant by implantation? Implantation means once the egg is being fertilized, that is when the sperm and the ova fuse together, then that particular egg we call it as the fertilized egg or the zygote. Then it undergoes the mitosis division and then a ball of cells will be formed. It is known as the embryo. Then it moves from the oviduct and then get attached to the thick lining of the uterus. So, that attachment, that is the attachment of the embryo to the thick lining of the uterus, that it is known as implantation. So, once the embryo has been attached to the uterine wall, then a disc-like tissue, it arises and it surrounds the embryo. That it is known as placenta, and that embryo, it gets connected to the mother through the umbilical cord. So, all the things with the help of the placenta only, all the requirements of the fetus is taking place. The growth of the fetus is taking place. That is, it is getting oxygen, it is getting all the nutrients, whatever waste products produced in the fetus, it should be removed. Everything it is being done with the help of placenta. So, that is a very, very important question. Mention the function of placenta. The main function of placenta is exchange of nutrients, then exchange of gases and waste products between the mother and the fetus. It is known as the function of placenta. That is a frequently asked question regarding the female reproductive system. So, what is implantation? And that attachment of the embryo to the lining of the uterus, it is known as implantation, or embedding of the embryo to the thick lining of the uterus, it is known as implantation. So, after the implantation only, the disc-like tissue it arises, and that disc-like tissue is known as placenta, which helps in exchanging the nutrients, then gases and also the waste product between the mother and the baby. And another one important point which you have to remember under female reproductive system is what is meant by gestation period. Gestation period means the time period from the fertilization up till the birth of the baby. It is known as the gestation period. So, the normal gestation period of a human being is 9 months. Okay, 9 months means 270 days. So, after 270 days, the next 10 days, within that 10 days, the birth of the baby takes place. And the birth of the baby takes place through the vagina. It is known as the birth canal. Vagina is known as the birth canal. And another one more topic which comes under female reproductive system, it is menstruation. The sperm, it enters through the vagina and then through the uterus, it will pass and then it reaches the oviduct for the fertilization process. But if the fertilization process does not occur, then this ripened ova along with the thickened lining of the uterus and the blood vessels, because the uterus lining, it gets thickened to receive the fertilized egg, but here the fertilization process is not taking place. So, that ripened ova along with the thickened lining of the uterus and the blood vessels, it sheds off or it comes out in the form of bleeding, and that process it is known as menstruation, and it occurs in every 28 days in females. So, that is another point you have to remember under female reproductive system. So, in female reproductive system, only these things you have to remember. That is regarding the main parts of the female reproductive system. What is placenta? What is the function of placenta? Then what is implantation? What is gestation period? And regarding what is meant by menstruation. So these are the important areas. Only the important areas I am going through. I am just only telling you only the important areas where frequently the question comes. Okay. And the last topic of which comes under this reproduction. How do organisms reproduce? In that particular chapter, that under sexual reproduction, the last topic is regarding the birth control method. Very, very important. Always it comes for 3-mark question. Sometimes it may come for 5-mark question also. So, the birth control method, so otherwise it is known as the contraceptive method. When by contraception means the method which is adopted by the women for preventing pregnancy. That is known as contraception or contraceptive methods. So here, so in that it comes 3 main methods. One, it is the barrier method. Second one, it is the chemical method. And third one, it is the surgical method. So these are the 3 main points which you have to remember. The first method, it is the barrier method. Second one, it is the chemical method. And third one, it is the surgical method. Barrier method, it is considered to be the most important or most safest method for birth control method because it prevents STD. STD means sexually transmitted diseases. So it is one of the most important method or most familiar method which is used by maximum persons because it prevents STD. If you don't want the child, then during the sexual intercourse, the male may use the condom. Condom will be used in order to prevent the fusion of the sperm and the ova. So, since condom is used, then it prevents the sexually transmitted diseases. So, barrier method, it has been considered as one of the most important method under birth control method. And here in the case of females also, there is one more device which is used by under barrier method. It is known as the diaphragm. It is used by the females. Okay. Second one, it is the chemical method. Chemical method means it includes oral pills. Oral pills will be taken by the females. Oral pill can be taken by the females, but here there is no guarantee that it prevents from sexually transmitted diseases. And another one more thing which comes under chemical method is IUCD. IUCD means intrauterine contraceptive device. That is copper T. Copper T. That is IUCD, intrauterine contraceptive device. This copper T will be used by the females and it will be inserted inside the vagina by a doctor or a nurse. And it helps in preventing the sperm to reach the ova. Okay. Oral pill means the pills will be taken inside. Sometimes there are certain other pills which is kept inside the vagina also. Vaginal pills also is available which kills the sperms so that the fusion of the sperm and the ova will not take place. So, 2 types are there under chemical method. One, it is the oral pill or the vaginal pill, and then next one it is the IUCD which is used by the female. And the last method, it is the surgical method which is commonly done by the people. That is by surgery, the sperm duct or the oviduct will be cut and then ligated so that the sperms and the ova will not fuse. Okay, so for that purpose, it is done by the efficient doctors and the process which is taking place inside the females, it is known as tubectomy, and which takes place inside the males, it is known as vasectomy. That is, the sperm duct which has been cut and then ligated, that process it is known as vasectomy. Vasectomy, because the sperm duct it is also known as vas deferens. And in the females, the oviduct or the fallopian tube, it is cut and then ligated. It is known as tubectomy. So, these are the 2 main processes or the terms which you have to remember under surgical method. So, I am stressing here, it is very, very important. The birth control method, it is frequently asked for board exam. So, you should concentrate in this particular area very well. That is the birth control method. Three methods are there. That is the barrier method, chemical method, and the surgical method. It comes under birth control methods, or otherwise it is known as the contraceptive methods. Okay. And the last topic which comes under this, it is regarding STD or sexually transmitted diseases. So, the diseases which are transmitted during sexual intercourse. Such type of diseases, they are known as sexually transmitted diseases. The two main examples, one it is the AIDS. AIDS, it occurs due to sexual intercourse. If the person is having that particular disease and you are having a sexual intercourse with that particular person, then it will be transferred through the sex organs. Second one, it is gonorrhea and syphilis. These are the other two sexually transmitted diseases, gonorrhea and syphilis. Here, this AIDS, it is caused by virus, and these two are caused by bacteria. So, gonorrhea and syphilis is caused by bacteria, and AIDS is caused by virus. The virus name of the AIDS, it is HIV virus, human immunovirus. That is, HIV virus is responsible for this particular sexually transmitted disease known as AIDS. AIDS full form is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. And gonorrhea and syphilis, it is caused by bacteria. It is curable, but here this till now it is not curable. So, it is curable. There will be pain or burning sensation in the genital area where the urine passes. In the genital area, the pain and the burning sensation arises. Rashes will be present when gonorrhea and syphilis is present due to the bacterial infection. Okay, so that is regarding this particular topic. So here today I have completed the sexual reproduction part. It takes place, how it takes place in both plants as well as in animals. In plants also I have explained about flower, its main parts, fertilization, pollination, etc. And the seed, it will be converted, which part will be converted to fruit and seed. That all it is explained here. Next I have moved on to sexual reproduction in animals. Here also I have discussed about what is fertilization, types of fertilization, regarding puberty, then male reproductive system, that is the human reproductive system, two types, one is the male reproductive system and the other one is the female reproductive system. Then the term menstruation, how that particular process takes place. Then the last very important topic, that is control methods. In that three methods I have explained, and also the STD. This is also very important. It comes for 2 mark question or case study question. That is regarding STD, sexually transmitted diseases. So only the important areas I have covered, which I have discussed today. I hope all have understood. So go through all these points, whatever I have discussed in this video today. It is very important. You have to concentrate in these areas. So thank you children, and the next part of this particular chapter will be uploaded tomorrow. Okay, thank you.